Amen. So crop shortages, or crop failures and food shortages. Depending on what videos you watch and who you listen to, it's a topic you'll run across right now. People are talking about are they coming? You know, that's the question. Are they coming? We've heard some interesting things I'm about to tell you about. Just those of you who are maybe interested in the solar grand minimum or any of the things involving the sunspots and the mini ice age and all that. It's big. It's big in those communities right now. People are sort of talking about it. I don't want to do the prepper porn, the doom and gloom, the sky is falling, because when you do the Chicken Little thing, you always end up looking silly. But historically, this is a cycle that happens, and we've, especially in America and in the West, we've been in such a cycle of prosperity, an unprecedented cycle of prosperity for so long. I guess maybe I should say mostly America, because obviously Europe went through the war, World War II and all that, but in America, it's been a long time since anyone had to be hungry. And historically, obviously, food shortages and crop failures follow or precipitate social unrest and societal upheaval and all that. So, is it coming? I've been sort of paying attention to this lately because of something Mariah told me about a video Deep South Homestead had about how frustrated he was with growing. How hard it's gotten to grow things. As a kid and as a younger man, he remembers things just growing, and how much hard work it is and how much lower the yields are. You could say some of that's rose-colored glasses and whatnot, and bad memory, but it combined with all the 2030 stuff and this grand solar minimum, it made me go bing, and I've been paying attention. And obviously, you got to always be worried about confirmation bias, and am I hearing what I'm looking for and whatnot. But we've been hearing some interesting things. I'm gonna let Mariah tell you the story. She doesn't want to be on camera right now, so she's just gonna give you a brief 360 of the garden while she talks, and I'll close this thing out. Go ahead, baby.
All right. So we've had a few setbacks this year, mainly with the planting. We planted row after row after row that did not come up of beans, mostly beans, and not really sure why. We had a really, really wet May, and so that could be one of the reasons. And I thought it was just me until I watched that Deep South Homestead video, and if Danny was having a hard time growing beans, then, well, I mean, yeah, definitely wasn't just me. So I started going to the farmer's market recently, and every single farmer that I run into has said that it has been the worst season they've ever seen. 50 years. I don't know. It seems like it's pretty, what would you say?
Prescient.
Oh, there's a good word. Worrisome.
I thought it was just something local when Mariah was talking about it. It has been very, very wet this summer. It's been the wettest summer I ever remember. I mean, here we are in August, and we have not had any kind of a dry period. I mean, usually in summer, around July, August, we all start, metaphorically sweating to go along with our literal sweat because it hasn't rained in 6 weeks. In July and August will be extremely dry, hot months. I don't know that we've gone 4 days without rain. I'm sure we have, but it doesn't seem like it. And I doubt we've gone a week without rain. But I thought it was a local, we got a storm coming in right now. I thought it was a local phenomenon, but then my father-in-law, Mariah's dad, just went up to Massachusetts, and he came back and told me the farmers were telling him the same thing up there, that he had a number of I don't remember his exact words, so I don't want to overblow it. But without, it's not like I was talking about what was going on down here. We were just in conversation, catching up from his visit, and he mentioned how much trouble the farmers were having up there. I talked to a guy today, actually just today, who he's not a big farmer, but they do a small garden every year, and he was talking about how much success he'd had in the past, and how this year things just weren't doing well. His squash of all things. If you ever garden in the South, squash just goes crazy. It goes nuts. And in the past, he's planted 4 squash plants and not been able to keep up with eating it and getting rid of it all. And it's kind of a joke, you know. You go to church down here and there'll be, you know, bags of squash and tomatoes in the pile that people say, please take my squash. You know, if you want to do someone a favor in the South, you know, sometimes you take their cucumbers and their squash because they can't eat them all. He's got 17 squash plants this year, and they're barely getting any squash. I haven't talked to Mariah about this. I feel like our squash isn't producing like it normally does. I feel like, you know, we're not covered up trying to eat all the squash like we normally are. That may just be, I don't pay attention sometimes very much to the details. My point is, all this is anecdotal, obviously. I'm not doing my Chicken Little routine. The sky's not falling. But it feels like, and like I said, confirmation bias is a big danger. Am I looking for what I want to find or what I'm expecting to find? But boy, my radar's up, you know. They say that America has about 18 months of food supply set back. That we could have, you know, two really disastrous harvests and not go hungry in America. I have read that in the past. But my question is, and I don't have this answer, you know, we're supposedly the world's breadbasket. You know, if we have disastrous harvests and we're feeding ourselves, what happens to the rest of the world? Our food shortages going on everywhere else. I've always remembered 1848, food shortages across Europe, the Irish potato famine, bunch of bad stuff in Europe, and food prices skyrocketed, and no one could buy anything but food. Food prices were so high, no one could afford anything. It precipitated a bunch of revolutions, a bunch of immigration. It drove a lot of immigration here to America, and changed the face of the world. It had a huge impact on the face of the world. Brought about the beginning of the end, maybe, of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Habsburgs and all that. I mean, a lot of old ancient history came to an end, starting in 1848 with those famines. And it is still affecting us today. You know, it led to the unification of Germany and all kinds of stuff in World War I and World War II, and, you know, whatever World War comes next. So it's just something to keep your eyes on, folks. You know, it's been not scary, but it's been eye-opening this year. You know, as we were walking up here, we stopped and looked at our beans, and beans are sort of our staple here. You know, it's like beans just grow, and you can't stop the beans. Our beans are devastated this year by a terrible, like a plague almost, of beetles that just stripped them bare. Now that's partially our fault. We planted way too much in one space, or way too many times in one space, and we plant a lot of beans, and we plant them close together, and so we kind of made ourselves susceptible to the bean attack. But you know, my idea has always been, well, we're not going to starve. We can eat beans and sweet potatoes and squash. But the squash isn't doing great. The beans are destroyed by the beetles. The sweet potatoes actually seem like they're, ooh, fire ants getting me, excuse me. Lots of fire ants there. It's time for me to move over here. Either that or put shoes on. The sweet potatoes don't seem like they're doing really great either. We got some right here that are doing like normal, but then we've got some farther down that seem pretty weak. Now they're, you know, maybe they're in shade. We just cleared that patch. Maybe the dirt's not, I don't know. I mean, this is anecdotal, but we're hearing a lot of chatter from a lot of places, and we're seeing on our own plot, our staples, our standbys, our go-tos just don't seem to be producing like we're used to. I don't know. We'll see. You know, those of us who are down here in the warm climes, we look at the solar grand minimum and all that stuff, and we think, you know, our summers are going to get cooler. We're going to be great. But it does change your climate. Maybe the things you're used to growing change. You know, maybe your winters our summers are much wetter, and we can't grow the things we used to grow. And it's just too wet. I don't know. I mean, maybe we need to start thinking about looking at the climate zones, you know, 1 or 2 zones ahead of us. I think we're zone 7. Maybe we need to start looking at zone 5 or something. I don't know. These are questions I would love to have answers to. But there you go, a little bit of information. You know, put it into your brain housing group and process it. You know, just the random idea that, oh, well, if things get bad, I'll plant crops and be fine. Not necessarily true. Anyway, we appreciate you, man. Thank you.